Daisy, thank you very much for joining me on the show today. How are you doing? And really nice to finally chat with you. Looking forward to speaking about all things OSINT and Hunted.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Baker. We've been trying to organise this for a while, I know, but we're there now. We're there. I'm really good today. I'm really good. It's been a lovely weekend of sunshine for me, and of course, we've just finished filming. Not finished filming. Finished the viewings all come out for Hunted, just gone, Civilian Hunted, Series 7. So most people have been watching that, of course, on Channel 4. So we're still on a bit of a high from that at the moment, actually. So all is good my end, and thank you for having me on the show.
You're very welcome. Thank you once again for joining me. And I bet you feel like there's a lot of pressure off your shoulders now it's finished airing because I bet whilst it's on, you get people in your ear all the time. Oh, did anybody win? What happened? Who finished where? Stuff like that.
Yeah, you're right. You're right with that one. I've my social media messaging has gone downhill now, which is giving me a bit of come up for fresh air. But it's a funny thing. It's only my second time filming. Second time around filming. I've only been in Hunted since 2022. I think that was the first year back after COVID. So for me, it's been a big sort of awakening, really, as to like, oh wow, this is a different sort of life here, and the amount of also, I suppose, the amount of sort of chatter I have with a lot of the on social media. I'm quite active on social media. So yeah, there's been a lot of ramping up for the sort of civilian series. And also we also knew as well with the civilian series it was the best yet. We knew that it was going to be an absolutely blinder of a series. And so we'd been there was a lot of anticipation in the run up to it. And fortunately it was all really well received by viewings and stuff. So it's been really exciting, and I have to say I think we're all on a bit of a come down now. But yeah, I'm sure a bit of sunshine and that will make us all feel a bit better.
But yeah, it was your first civilian series actually, wasn't it? The most recent one, of course. I think it was 2 years since the last civilian one I had with Sarah and Nathan winning. That was actually the series that got me into the show, as that one was great. So I'm looking forward to it coming back again. But I I'm going to let you pick where we start here. I don't know whether to ask you a little bit about Orsin first, or whether or how you got on Hunted first, because it kind of links in with that. What would you prefer to explain first, Daisy?
Well, I'm a terrible talker, so whatever I say will probably end up merging into the same sort of question. I mean, they are both questions that feed on, I think, probably surrounding my background and how I got on the show is very much interlinked. So I'm happy to crack on with talking about that if you want, Baker.
Yeah, let's talk about a little. Let's talk a little bit about your background in Orsin then, and how it linked to getting on the show. So, but firstly, can you explain what it is for everybody watching?
That's a, that's a good start. So OSINT is short for Open Source Intelligence, and it's pretty much it's intelligence research into publicly available information. So that could be anything. I mean, we're talking about obviously your basics like your internet, you've got your social media, you've got things like even using geospatial data as well. So using things like Google Earth, Google Maps, that's a couple popped in there. There's things like Radiant Earth, loads of free GIS data out there. So you can get that sort of street view stuff. You've got other types of intelligence as well, which you can pick up on, such as maritime intelligence. So you've got marine traffic. You've also got, of course, you've got the flight tracker. So a lot of different, I'm popping some
Yeah,
names in
that
there.
was.
I don't know whether I'm allowed to do that, but those are just really good examples. They're all open source. And then, of course, you've got your big lot. You've got your social media platforms. So you've got your Facebook. You've got your Weibo, whatever it's called. You've got your X, as it's now is, Instagram, Snapchat. So and of course YouTube, and there's loads and loads of other platforms out there. So it's really just like a big landscape of like, what are these tools that we can use to gather intelligence and gather information? It doesn't have to be online. It tends to be nowadays, but of course you can refer back to things like newspapers and historical types of media as well. So OSINT has really got the attention, I think, since it's really, really developed and moved on since, of course, the advent of the internet. Making that data publicly available for everybody has been fascinating. And you'll often find as well on things like, for example, if you're trawling through X, formerly Twitter, of course, there's lots and lots of misinformation on there. There's lots of stories that come out, and it's often can be misinformation. It's actually people's hobbies now is to go into those posts and to basically discredit them and say, right, okay, hang on, that's not right, because that was at this point in time. So it's
It's
almost
easy
become a
to do, isn't it? I guess.
yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people on the internet, I mean, that take an image, I mean, and will just rip it apart and say, well, this is not true, this is not right. So that it is a hobby these days. I mean, thinking about OSINT in itself, it's very much as I said, it's developed a lot since the social media platforms have come around, because of course you've got much more about people on there. You've got much more information about personal stories. Everyone's blogging about their life history, so it's a great source of intelligence. But of course it's only information that is publicly available, so you have to be, there's a level, and of course if it's not publicly available, that's when it gets a bit more complex then, and you start going into something called the IPA, which is the Investigative Powers Act, and that sort of side of things, which I'm not going to go into today. So that's a bit about OSINT.
Well, I wanted to also say that it always really interested me because last year you did some of them challenges and I really liked them. Not that I was any good at them, but I enjoyed having a guess. But I guess it all ties in because since the invention of social media and all of these platforms, I guess anybody can know where anybody is at one time if they're blogging where they are and everything. So I can imagine it's had a real like the invention of social media had a real effect on all of this.
Yeah, you're right. I did do those OSINT challenges, and I started doing those. I should probably go back, but I actually quite like taking part in other people's OSINT challenges now. So there's a couple of people on X that I follow that literally they put them out on a weekly basis, and I take part in them. But yeah, a picture tells 1,000 words, and that's been something now which we've got lots and lots of different tools which can assist you in being able to extract that information out of, say, an image, like, for example, that it might be simple things like the brickwork on a building, which, if it's slightly different, you could sort of work around that. You can use things like shadow analysis. So what time of day was that video being filmed? Was it midday when the sun was high? Was it, which direction? And that can really help. We have tried to use as many tools in Hunted as we possibly can, to be able to sort of get as much information. Some stuff, of course, doesn't get filmed and doesn't get captured, but that's part and parcel of any investigation, of course.
I guess as well, it's got to be like an hour, hasn't it? So there's plenty of things we probably don't see. But speaking about Hunted and Autumn, how was it you were approached to join the show and use your skills with the investigations and helping to capture the fugitives?
Yeah, so going back in, I can't remember the year, like a while back, 2007, I think it was. I wanted to go into crime scene investigation work. That was like my big thing that I wanted to do. CSI, as of course the program is like. So I went and did a master's in forensic investigation and forensic science up at Teesside University, actually.
That's just over there.
So I came up then, and I have to say I loved it. I was not the typical student. I'd already done 4 years at Loughborough Uni, so I'd done quite a bit already, and I was just there to study, and I absolutely loved it. And Teesside is really well renowned, especially now, more so now than when I was there, for its crime scene investigation courses and masters and bachelor of science. So I did the forensics. I absolutely loved it. Learned a lot about crime scene work, learned a lot about forensics, but of course did study some modules that were in intelligence and analysis. At the time when I came out of my masters, I passed with absolute flying colours. I did really, really well, sort of got the equivalent of a first distinction. And then when I came out, I went to go and it was actually a really difficult time because it was 2008, I think, when we were going through all the recession. And jobs in the police especially were on hold, and they weren't really externally advertising jobs. They were doing a lot of internal recruitment. So I thought I'll just get in there. I'll just get into the police and then see where I want to go from there. So I joined Thames Valley Police as a intelligence researcher. And that is where my OSINT love started. So we're going back a number of years now, but coming from a non-police background, a sort of student background, going straight into that was fascinating. So I was able to use all of my sort of investigative skills, all my kind of inquisitive mind. So I worked for something called the Force Intelligence Bureau, which basically looks at crime at a force level. So we're talking about serious and organised crime, which means generally that the criminals are coming in and out of the force. So I was working at quite a high level. My role at the time was something called I was a single point of contact for child exploitation online. So I was very much looking at those online offenders, especially when it came to child exploitation. And so that was my role, and I developed intelligence there, and that is where I found my love for OSINT. Facebook was really, really big then, and you had things like MySpace as well, I think.
I know you said about like 2007, 8. That was that when Facebook was invented.
Might well have been, yeah. I'm not so great on, yeah, but it was. I mean, I might be able to find that one out. Might want to check that one out. It might have been around for a little while before. I can't quite remember, but it was all about sort of like, this is me, this is my persona, and this is what I'm like on Facebook. And there was very little tools as well. People weren't aware of the tools, the privacy tools. So it was allowed us to be able to go and basically look at everyone's profiles and to get that intelligence and that picture of that person's lifestyle. So my role was very much to it was very much about the online criminal as such. We would get some intelligence, say for example, about somebody that was looking and or disseminating indecent images of children. So then my role would be very much right, who is this person? We might not get that much information. We might only get an IP address, for example. So we'd have to go and develop that intelligence, and then that would be passed on to area, and then the warrants were conducted. I was one of the first people who went on something called the RIGHTS course, which was the researching in identifying, tracing the electronic suspect with the College of Policing. One of the first people in my force that did that. And that is really where it all started. And I really started to develop that OSINT role within the police. And before I knew it, I was training police officers, I was training other people within different departments on how to, utilize social media. This was before all of the sort of legislation came in to sort of say, right, okay, hang on a minute. You might be, you're going too far into someone's privacy here. So there was a lot of that has changed, of course, and much more regulated now, which I think is a good thing. So that was really my starting point. And then I actually left the police, realizing I loved my role in intelligence, and I went and worked for community safety services, trading standards, very much worked with them. And I worked for them for 12 years, managing intelligence and transforming their world from being sort of a how do I describe it, quite a reactive service into one that was much more intelligence led. So utilizing all of the knowledge that I got from in the police. So, and then that's taking me up to where I am almost today. I do a different role now, but that's slightly different. I'm in performance now, but it was then 2 years ago. I told you it would take me a long time to tell you, Bakey. So you're gonna have to edit this and cut bits out, aren't you?
No, it's
Um,
fine. I've enjoyed hearing the story.
yeah. So then it was at that point. It was when I was the 2 years ago, and I'd obviously via LinkedIn, I got a little message saying, "Oh, hello, Daisy. We've seen your profile. We can see that you've got experience of OSINT because I've got it on LinkedIn." And then that's it. The rest is history. And next thing I knew, a couple of weeks later, I'm in London. I'm meeting the producer, Reese Towers, and I'm having a casting with him. So, and it pretty much the rest is history. And it was a really simple task, on the casting. I can't tell you how nervous I was, Baker. Oh,
Really?
it was worse than a job interview because you don't know what to expect because it would be the first time I'd ever gone to anything like that before. It reminded me a little
Yeah.
bit of like drama school when I was younger, where I'd have to go for an audition and I'd be like, I don't know what to expect. But it was fantastic. I just had to do a little bit to TV, to camera, and talk about my experience, and yeah, and that was it.
Were you
So
aware of the show before
yeah, yeah.
all of it? Yeah.
Yeah, and in all honesty, I watched the first couple of series. I'm not a massive television like buff. I do like TV, but I'm much more like kind of the documentary kind of girl. I love my it's awful, but I love my serial killer documentaries. I like the drama documentaries. I like Des. Do you remember Des, about Des
Good.
Nielsen?
Yeah.
Yeah, really good. I love that sort of stuff. So I'm not so much I'm not into the entertainment and celebrity world that much. I'm really bad actually on that. So for me that was yeah, it was a bit of something different. So I did have to go through, in all honesty, and I tell the producers this. I had to go back and binge watch it all after I realised I got the role. I was like, right, how, what am I gonna? How am I gonna do this? And of course, Becky, the incredible thing is, and I can't tell you this enough. I did not know before I went on what to expect. So I had
Yeah.
no idea. I just watched the television program. I didn't know anybody. I knew one person. I knew Ray Howard, Chief Ray, not Chief. What is he? He's the ops manager, I think, of Ray Howard. So he was my old boss for about a year when I was in the police. So I knew him. So I had a little chat, couple of message interactions with him, and he was like, "Yeah, it's brilliant. You should definitely come. You'd be brilliant." Blah blah blah. Anyway, the first day I got there, I was just like, I didn't know what to expect. Like, is this in any way scripted? And it wasn't at all. And it was just so interesting. It had a really sort of good vibe about it. The people that I work with were so incredible, were so intelligent, were so passionate about the work that they were doing in HQ. I have to say, I didn't get to know too many of the ground hunters until probably this series just gone. Not the 22 one, the one before that, the celebrity one. Um, we're sort of kept quite separate within the program.
So it sounds like it all came together quite quickly then, and I can understand that you probably didn't know what it was like until actually filming, because as a viewer, you have no idea of what goes on behind the scenes.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I think for me that was one of the fascinating points. Really, is that I was sort of like almost half expecting to get there and sort of be told a little bit about what was going to maybe happen, or all of that sort of side of things. And it was not like that at all. It was really, really, it was really intense. So long hours, but the camaraderie in HQ, I can't tell you, is just absolutely fantastic, is it?
It looks fun.
Yeah, and also you get so immersed in it. It is for you. It is. I mean, I've obviously worked on a number of investigations before in real life. I mean, it was more intense for me than that, but it felt just like that. And you
Yeah,
can see in our faces on the show how passionate we are, and how sort of like you could see it in our faces, and that. I mean, the roles that we have, we all have different roles within HQ, and sometimes it does look a bit like we're all might be doing each other's roles, but it very much is. We have specific roles. Like for example, my role is OSINT, and Doug and Sophia and Paul, who do the cyber work and cybercrime side of things, and they're absolutely incredible. And of course, everyone's got a role there, and we really feed off each other, and it's a really good. It's really there's a real buzz when we're on set and we're filming. Um, so yeah, it's certainly something that gives you. It's almost like I call it to my friends. I say it's like my second life, because it is. It feels like
yeah.
that. Into step onto set and you're like, oh my gosh, different. Game face comes on.
I guess that's nice then, because I think we can see by like your Instagrams when you're posting about hunted and everything how much fun it is when filming, and I think it does look good in HQ. I think I'd rather be in HQ than on the ground.
Yeah, absolutely, Baker. And I have to say, there's been a couple of times I've thought, oh, I'd quite like to get out and about, really. Um, but yeah, I do have to say I like the buzziness of it. I like the information, in HQ. I like the information flow. I love the way that we've got, like, right, okay, hang on, someone's just posted on social media, whatever it might be. Jackson and Nicola have just posted that they're in what's it called, Cardiff. Right,
Yeah,
yeah, let's get on to that. And it might be that we might spend a day, we might spend 24 hours researching that and trying to get to the bottom of it. Of course, the television program makes it look like it's all happening really quickly, but or we might might get something in within the hour or within 20 minutes, and then sort of like get that information back to Lisa and Chief Lisa Thika, and there's often a buzz in the room. Of course, we do have our quarter time, so we have to really sort of concentrate on maybe some other pieces of work that we're doing. But there's a number, there's a lot of fugitives to monitor, and especially at the start, especially at launch. Launch is a huge amount of anticipation because you don't know where it's going to be. We don't know where it's going to be. Um, and I think that's the thing, is suddenly like, right, okay, hang on a minute, right. Even when the helicopter's spinning around and doing all its bits, we're like, whoa, 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 where's this? Where is this? Can we identify where this location is? Okay, sometimes, like for example, it was a bit easier on the civilian series because of course we had all the tube stops, and it was quite sort of like, okay, well that's quite logical. But a lot of that is really part of the investigation. So it's not even
yeah.
sometimes just about the fugitives. It can be about where is launch, where's extraction going to be, all these
Yeah, I think
things.
it's very similar for extraction.
Pardon?
I was going to say, I bet it's similar for extraction as well when you don't know where that's going to be.
Yeah, and it's great fun. And we have these little bets in Eight Hunted sometimes, not for any money, just for a beer or something. But we're sort of like, okay, let's where are they all heading? Where are all the celebrities or the fugitives heading? Okay, they're heading in a northerly direction. And of course, for within the series 7, the most recent one, they all headed down south to London, took them back there to get the extraction information, and then they had to head all the way back up to the
Yeah,
north, to the Lake District. So you can imagine all of us going, what's going on? Where are they going? And also
confused.
yeah, and you tend to think as well, you sort of think, I mean, I know I've only been doing it a couple of years, but you tend to think, well, if they're going to go and get their extraction location in London, it's got to be kind of close-ish to London, at
Yeah,
least within a couple of 150 miles or 100 miles, 200 miles, whatever. Yes, it was a real surprise when we realised that they were sort of all heading back up north. And so some of the guessing games, great fun, is sort of like, okay, where would it be? And I think one of my guesses for that one, I didn't guess the Lake District. I guessed there was a beach on the west coast. Don't ask me where it is, but there's a big long beach, and we
Yeah,
thought, oh, it'd be perfect for an extraction
for
location.
a helicopter to land.
Uh, yeah, or an aeroplane or a seaplane or something like that. I don't know. So, but yeah, I was wrong. But so I ended up buying the beers, I think. But
All for fun, anyways. And talking of fun, I know we've covered like how much you enjoy being on Hunted. What's the most fun part for you about the show and just being on it and filming?
um, well, the most fun part is when I get a really brilliant OSINT find. That is definitely my most fun part because it's the build up. It's that, for example, I mean, I'm just going to pick out, for example, the Christina Munya example from the last series where we'd got them in a vehicle with a musician, Laura Veers.
That was
Um,
it.
yeah, and they were in, and that's the great thing about them is they were sort of like, well, they won't catch us because we're not on social media, sort of thing. Christina Munya, they had no social media trace. You know, you start googling and advanced googling their names, and you're not, yeah, not having any luck at all. But you can't help it if somebody else that you're with has social media, and that was the interest. Pardon?
He was on tour as well.
Absolutely. And so once we knew who they were in the vehicle with, we were like, hang on a minute. Well, let's keep tabs on this person. And of course, her what do you call it? Oh, she was her.
Port band with
That's the one. Yeah,
oh, yeah.
yeah, absolutely. And I think with that, is like, let's keep tabs on them. And then the joys start coming through when they start posting on social media. It's brilliant. So I think for me, the most fun bit is when I can see, I start to see stuff come in, and I get that. I get a feeling in my stomach. I get a feeling in the pit of my stomach that, hang on a minute, this could be something, but it's not quite there yet. And it's that build up, building that picture up before you go, Chief, I've got something. And
Yeah.
because you don't want to say, Chief, I've got something, and she comes over and she goes, no, Daisy, you've got to just do a bit more work on that. Or, or you realize actually that's not quite what you thought it was, that information. So
Yeah.
that's a really, really great part of it. And that is the fun part, because not only is it really great when it leads to the capture, but it also makes you feel like you're doing a good job in Hunted, and you're doing the job that they wanted you on TV for. Um, and of course, everyone's on a real high after a capture. And I think that's the most fun bit. I would say also extraction's a fun bit, but when they get away, not so fun for us.
Yeah, I bet like you say when you have such a big part in capture, I bet that gives you nice satisfaction. And I also wanted to mention the moment that you had with Jack. Of course, you got put under disguise and you were told to get some information out of him on where his fugitive partner was after he'd been caught.
Yeah, that was brilliant. There was a lot of organisation went into that. It made it look like it all happened really quickly, but a lot of organisation. We knew Jack was coming in, and me being a new hunter, of course, I was. I don't think he'd even really watched the show before. I'm not sure, but we thought we need to get someone in there who's not obviously not known. So got me in there, and do you know what? I knew as soon as I knew I knew that we Chief had sort of said, let's look at trying to get somebody in undercover. And when they came to me and mentioned it to me, I was like, he'll be no problem. I get on, I could get on and go for a drink with him and go on a night out with him. He's just that sort of guy. He was just such a talker. He's like me, really. Oh, we just talk. And literally, I knew, and I just get on with him really well, and the conversation would flow. So sitting downstairs, I have to say, like sitting in that sort of downstairs in the canopy bit before our interrogations, I felt really anxious. I was really anxious. I was little things like, oh, what if he sees my microphone, or all these sorts of things. You to get as a somebody undercover. But I thought, you know what, it's cool. We can do this. So we actually had a really good chat with each other, and we spoke quite a lot about things like I got out a magazine. I got out Country Life magazine. I thought he'll like that. You know, we can have a little because he's seen that sort of guy. And we first started chatting about that. We were talking about the big houses in it and all of that. And yeah, so it was about building that rapport with him, which I didn't find hard to do. I think he was definitely one of the easier fugitives, and I don't mean that disrespectfully to him. I mean in terms of that he had good banter, he had really good conversations, and I think he worked really well. And yeah, he was quite keen to tell me all about everything he'd been up to and all the parties he'd been at and on the aeroplane and stuff. So the fact that he gave away where his best mate was just it was like you could feel it in HQ because of course they were getting the recording back at that point in time. You could feel it in HQ, that bing moment. It was like, right, get Daisy out of there.
Get down to where he is.
Yeah.
I guess that's what was needed. But that was a great moment in the series. Of course, with a lot of them. Unfortunately for HQ, it wasn't a clean sweep. Of course, Jackson, Nicola, Sade all reaching extraction and getting a share of the money. But what would you say are some of the highlights from the most recent series for you, Daisy? Of course, we just spoke about that moment with Jack, but are there any others that stick out?
Oh, that probably yeah, good good question. I think obviously my little bit of OSINT skills with the cathedral and the spires in
Yeah.
Norwich, where I identified that they were staying at the Georgian townhouse. That we used it. That was for me. That was the biggest highlight. Really, it was quite early on in the series, and I suppose not being blowing my own trumpet, but without that, we wouldn't have necessarily had a capture that early on. And it was a really great piece of teamwork. It wasn't, I know Doug was there helping as well. We were feeding off each other, and the communications with the ground team were absolutely fantastic in that respect. Then, and so it was a really great piece of investigative work, and I think that would definitely be up there with the highlights for me. I also, I mean, there's a lot of funny things that, of course, happened, and little things like frustrating moments, a lot of frustrating moments, and a lot of great moments. I mean, I loved little things like the boys. I loved how they all got out of London in different sort of ways. And I remember sort of thinking about Kathy and Anida. So when they got changed under the arches of the Ritz, I can't tell you how long we in HQ spent trying to
Yeah.
understand what had happened because they just disappeared. To us, they just disappeared. I remember, things like requesting CCTV from inside the Ritz, looking at the menu to see if they got, because we thought it's about right. Those girls will go in the Ritz, won't they? That's the sort of thing that they'd do. Go and have afternoon tea. And we literally were there. We were stuck for probably half a day, I would say, just trying to figure out where they'd gone. It's quite embarrassing actually, but in a way, it's kind of like it was the logic. It's the logic that goes through your head. So you can imagine the frustration. People say however many hundreds of thousands of cameras in London. Yeah, it's great, but actually what you're doing is you're just chasing the tail. You're just chasing their tails. You're not actually getting ahead of them. And in a clever investigation, it's about getting ahead of them and knowing what they're potentially going to do or where they're going to end up. Um, and that, of course, is where some of the OSINT comes in and the social media work and the work that Doug does as well. Doug and Sophia do, and Paul when he's on the show, in terms of understanding what they've got on their technology, which contacts they've got, and kind of interrogating hacking into their accounts. So yeah, definitely those are up there with the sort of highlights and the lows, I would say. I did like it when Cameron Cameron made his sprint as well. Oh, it's got to be as well. Sorry, Alex, when he across that field. That was
Yeah.
that. I mean,
Yeah.
that was incredible because that was totally like I know it didn't. It looked like it was just it was just so impulsive at the time. It was like, hang on a minute, how can he be walking across the field and he can't hear him? I don't know the ins and outs, but I believe he had some music or something going on, which meant that he couldn't hear him. But that was just incredible. Incredible work, of course, by the ground hunters, but also the communication with HQ, and to the ground. And that was absolutely fantastic. That was.
He
We were
was he was
sitting in,
cornered as well.
yeah,
I just the hunters coming from all different directions.
yeah, yeah. And yeah, I mean, you should have seen us in HQ and how, we were just screaming at the screens, going, "Go on, get him!" Of
We
course,
can
we could do that.
we can see how much it means to you all when there's a capture.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think it must be such a good feeling. But I want to flip the question, Daisy. If you were on the run, how do you think you would do?
Great question, Baker. How would I? Well, of course, I'd do amazingly, because I can't say I'd do terribly. I do think
Got to
genuinely.
back yourself.
I genuinely think that I would do really well. I'm very outdoorsy. I'm very active. I think that would be one of my bonuses. I'm not one for big cities. Although if we started in a big city, again, I know I have that knowledge that they'd just be chasing my tail. Um, I think I would I think I would do great because I'm not the sort, of course, like, it wouldn't make great TV if I just went and camped out in a field for
Yeah,
2 weeks.
it's got to be exciting TV. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'd definitely stay rural. I'd definitely try and do a lot of walking, and use, the public transport and that sort of side of things. Um, Although I do have to say the unpredictability is a really good method, for being on the run. Let's go back to Nick and Eva Speakman from Celebrity Series.
Yeah.
And they were so unpredictable. You wouldn't know where they were going, what they were doing. They'd get in a car with somebody, they'd do this. So using them and really not using public transport that much. They would use a taxi or something like that. But generally they were all over the place. And I think that is the technique that I would use. I'd try to be impulsive. Try not to be too planned. Um, and I would try to stay as rural as possible. That's not always a good thing though, State. So I'm thinking this through as I'm talking to you, Baker. But it's not always the best thing being rural because you can stick out like a sore thumb.
I guess sometimes you don't know, do you? That's the thing, the unpredictability is sometimes the best thing.
Yeah.
And just
What I do
taking it
know, what I
how it
do know
comes.
that I wouldn't do is I wouldn't do things like I try not to get on a train because if you're on a train, you're stuck on a train.
Yeah.
I wouldn't do anything too flashy. I wouldn't get on an aeroplane necessarily.
I wouldn't
Um,
go back home either. I don't think that's a
no,
good.
no, I would not go back home. I would not I would not contact anyone on my phone. But if I did have to contact someone on my phone or a phone, I would definitely, yeah, use some kind of code or something. Try and be clever, but that's not always clever because that sometimes gives it away. Or
Yeah.
yeah, and posting on social media. Now, I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with that because what I could do is make it really straightforward and simple, like just me take a picture of myself, like with just a tree behind me, like a plain tree. No kind of like, where is she? Where could she be? None of that. No, like no triggers there. Um, so yeah, that would be. I think I'd be awesome on the run, but of course, I would think that, wouldn't I?
I think you've got to back yourself. Maybe we should have a series one time where hunters are on the run. I think that would be a good idea. But we're talking about coming hunted, Daisy. I know we can't spoil too much, but before we finish, is there anything you can say about if it's coming back anytime soon?
Well, we've got a celebrity version, of course, that we filmed last year. We filmed it last, yeah, whenever it was, feels like a blur. I think it was June-ish time. And we've got some great celebrities in there. Now, I don't know when that's going to be released or televised yet. It's still to be confirmed when that's coming out. So we still have one in the bag there. And I can't tell you that is absolutely fantastic. That is going to make some great television. We've got a few people that are quite well-known names. I don't think I'm gonna. I probably shouldn't say anything just in case. But let me put it this way: you can look on the internet because there's lots of. I think those people have come out, have even said it themselves. So we've also got instead of six. What is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Is it? We usually have 5 celebrity fugitives. We've got 6. 6? Can't remember. But we've got more fugitives this time around for the celebrity version, so it makes it harder because we've got more fugitives and we've actually got the same amount of sort of HQ staff there and hunters, I believe. So it's going to be a really exciting one. And there's lots of parts of the country that they go that's really, really interesting and fascinating. And yeah, so I'm really looking forward to that when that comes out. We don't know yet what the future holds for civilian hunted, unfortunately. We'll just have to see. But I do know that the viewing figures for the most recent one were absolutely fantastic. Best ever for a civilian series. So that was really encouraging.
Well, let's keep our fingers crossed as we can all we can do is hope. So let's keep our fingers crossed, and I look forward to seeing the celebrity series. But Daisy, thank you very much for coming on and chatting with me, and hopefully we can catch up again when the next celebrity series airs.
Yeah, and hopefully I can be doing a bit more clever investigation work there and we can have a little chat about it. But
Fingers
yeah, lovely. Thank you for
fingers
having me on,
crossed.
Baker.
No problem. Thank you very much, Daisy.